Hi. So this video is about Van Jones. Was a master speaker at Greenville 2012, and he is amazing. He was on the New York Times bestseller list for a book called Green Collar Jobs, and he just has an amazing way with words. So very inspiring speech. He had there was the person who introduced him literally credited Van Jones with saving his life as far as giving him new direction and purpose in life. So he was a kid that was lost and going down the wrong path, the gun path and jail path and that kind of stuff. And by learning how to install solar and helping elderly in their homes, he has completely transformed his life. So it was a really moving introduction to Van Jones. And then Van Jones came up and he didn't even start a speech because he was moved by this kind of tribute by this young gentleman. And he basically said, you know, I got tired. I got tired of seeing young men like you be killed and attending funerals and seeing prom pictures on funeral programs. And, you know, he made the connection that we need jobs, and then there's a lot of jobs to do. So green jobs, not jails, was kind of his beginning point. And that we have a throwaway society, and that kind of pervades and everything in our society. And he says, we don't want to throw away our young people either. And we need, what else do you say? Fight pollution and poverty at the same time. So then I mentioned his kind of way with words. He's also very ironic, and he's quick to point out what he called silly stuff in the politics realm. He says, guess who 4 years ago talked about how cap and trade, like climate change is a number one issue, and cap and trade would solve it and create jobs at the same time. Well, of course, we were all thinking about President Obama, and he said, no, McCain said that. And that just 4 years ago, that was the common ground between the two candidates. And he asked the question, how did the number one issue 4 years ago not even be an issue at all in this recent election? What happened? And he basically said there was a concerted effort to try to squash the message. And then he was pointing out that how those that wanted to end the myth of green jobs and delegitimize climate change science were the same people who kind of co-opted the Solyndra story. And he said, do you know that the Solyndra loan program was started under George W. Bush, in the 2007 energy bill? And so the whole kind of audience was like, oh my goodness. And then he said that the success rate of that loan program was 93%. And there were a couple bad loans, which Solyndra was one of them, but 93% of that loan program really worked. And it turned into 3.1 million jobs, or 2.4 million jobs, depending on Brookings Institute versus Department of Labor. And then he made a comparison of Bain Capital, which only had an 80% success rate. So it's all about how you kind of look at things and make sure you do your homework on who does. But of those green jobs created, 70,000 jobs were created in wind and renewable energy, and by comparison, there are only 80,000 jobs in coal in this country. And there's 100,000 jobs in solar. So he was kind of saying this to say he wanted us to understand that how successful this movement has been despite the headwinds, and that we are still winning the race, if you will, and it doesn't have to be political. And he said last year that Germany had 4 days where 50% of the country was completely powered by renewable energy. And he's like, there's huge opportunities to make that number even better. And they don't have a lot of sunshine. And he said, why should you proceed ahead? He says, if you're taking poison out of our kids, you're saving lives. You're the only hope we have, really, in a lot of ways. And he went on to talk about the last American economy had 3 pillars, and it was all wrong. Both political parties said we could have the best economy based on consumption rather than production. Send all the production overseas. That turned out that we can't do that forever. We learned that. Number 2 is the best economy. We can have the best economy on credit and not savings and investing in thrift. And then the third was ecological destruction rather than ecological restoration. Those are 3 pillars that have all been absolutely demolished, have collapsed. And so now we need to focus on local production, conservation, thrift, savings, and green building and the green economy is the only thing that fits. It's the only rational response to last century's economic model. When he talked about the miners going in and risking their lives for our energy source, he's like, our future's not down in those mining holes. Our future is up in the sky. And when you look up at solar or wind, he's like, if you put wind offshore, you're not going to have this massive slick if it all falls down. He went on to make a couple other jokes. He did make the point that the United States is growing at 2%, whereas the rest of the world is not growing, save for obviously China and India. But they're growing because they're building roads. They're doing what we did, half a century ago. He commended us that we're the problem solvers, the green building industry. And he says, focus on how we do food and fuel, more wealth, more health, and more happiness. And he kind of said, take back the message. He challenged us to take back the message. So there's a song called America the Beautiful, and he said, defend America's beauty from clear cutters. We have to do more now, and that make it a patriotic value to care about our sustainable future. There's a place in it for everyone. He made a heavy emphasis on social equity, and talked a little bit about the smart grid. And basically that we were the key to this economy and to keep forging ahead and don't let anything stop us. Really inspiring. And that's it. Thank you. Bye.